The entire room burst into laughter the moment the exhausted single father smiled awkwardly and pointed toward the elegant billionaire standing beside him. Trying to escape an embarrassing misunderstanding, he jokingly said she was his wife. Nobody expected the graceful woman to blush softly, look straight into his tired eyes, and quietly admit that she would actually love that. In that single heartbeat, the crowded charity event fell strangely silent, and two completely different worlds unexpectedly collided. Before we begin this unforgettable story, please take a second to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to Heartwarming Tales for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. Morning sunlight stretched across the city as Rowan Mercer balanced two paper coffee cups in one hand while helping his 7-year-old daughter Ivy tighten the straps of her tiny backpack with the other. Life had never been easy since his wife passed away 4 years earlier after a sudden illness. Every sunrise meant another battle against unpaid bills, endless work shifts, and the silent loneliness that followed him everywhere. Still, Rowan never allowed Ivy to see the fear hidden behind his smile. To her, he remained the strongest father in the world. Rowan worked as a maintenance technician at one of the city's largest convention centers. His days were filled with fixing broken lights, repairing doors, and making sure every important event looked flawless before wealthy guests arrived. Although people wearing expensive suits barely noticed him, Rowan took pride in every job. Honest work, he believed, gave his daughter a future worth fighting for. That bright Saturday morning, the convention center hosted one of the country's largest children's charity fundraisers. Famous entrepreneurs, celebrities, and business leaders gathered to donate millions toward education programs. Rowan had spent hours preparing the ballroom while Ivy quietly colored pictures in a small break room nearby because he couldn't afford a babysitter. Among the arriving guests was Serafina Vale, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. Newspapers described her as brilliant, fearless, and impossible to impress. She had built a technology empire before turning 35 and had donated enormous amounts to children's hospitals without ever seeking attention. Despite her wealth, she walked through the event with surprising humility, greeting employees with genuine smiles instead of ignoring them. Fate stepped in when a decorative lighting display suddenly malfunctioned moments before Serafina's opening speech. Sparks flickered overhead, causing panic among organizers. Rowan immediately climbed the maintenance ladder without hesitation, calmly fixing the dangerous wiring before anyone could be hurt. His quick thinking prevented disaster, yet once the applause faded, he quietly returned to work as though saving the event had been nothing extraordinary. Serafina noticed everything. Later that afternoon, while Rowan searched for Ivy near the refreshment tables, several reporters mistakenly assumed they were together after seeing Serafina thanking him personally. Cameras flashed rapidly as confused journalists asked whether the billionaire had finally found someone special. Rowan's face turned bright red. Embarrassed beyond words and trying to end the awkward moment, he laughed nervously and joked that she was his wife. Instead of correcting him immediately, Serafina smiled warmly. She looked at Rowan with an honesty few people ever dared to reveal and softly admitted that she would actually love that. Every camera stopped clicking. Every conversation disappeared. Rowan stared in complete disbelief. Although everyone believed the moment was simply clever humor, Serafina's eyes revealed something deeper. For years, endless business success had surrounded her with people interested only in her fortune. She had attended countless glamorous events yet always returned to an empty home. Looking at Rowan, she saw something she had almost forgotten existed: quiet kindness without expectation. The following week, Serafina surprised Rowan by visiting the convention center again. This time there were no reporters, no cameras, and no grand speeches. She simply asked whether he and Ivy would join her for lunch at a small family cafe instead of an expensive restaurant. Rowan hesitated, worried that people would misunderstand, but Ivy excitedly accepted before he could answer. Throughout the afternoon, Serafina listened more than she spoke. She learned about Rowan's struggles as a widowed father, his long work hours, and the promises he made every night to give Ivy a better life. Rowan discovered that Serafina had lost both of her parents before becoming successful and understood loneliness more deeply than headlines ever revealed. Slowly, friendship began replacing awkwardness. Ivy adored Serafina almost immediately. She never treated the little girl like charity or responsibility. Instead, she knelt beside her to draw colorful pictures, laughed at her silly jokes, and remembered every tiny story Ivy shared about school. Rowan found himself smiling more often than he had in years, though he constantly reminded himself that people from different worlds rarely shared happy endings. Not everyone welcomed their growing friendship. Several powerful executives within Serafina's company believed a struggling single father would damage her public image. Gossip spread across social media. Some accused Rowan of chasing wealth, while others claimed Serafina had lost her judgment. The cruel comments hurt Rowan deeply. Rather than allowing Serafina's reputation to suffer because of him, he quietly stopped answering her messages. Days turned into weeks. Serafina understood exactly why Rowan had disappeared. Instead of becoming angry, she respected his decision but refused to give up. One sunny morning, she arrived unexpectedly at Ivy's elementary school during the annual family picnic after receiving a handwritten invitation from Ivy herself. The little girl had secretly mailed it, believing grown-ups sometimes needed children to remind them what truly mattered. When Rowan saw Serafina walking across the playground carrying homemade sandwiches instead of expensive gifts, his heart quietly broke open. She had come not to impress anyone but simply to spend time with the people who had unknowingly become her family. That afternoon, surrounded by laughing children in golden sunshine, Rowan finally admitted that fear had controlled him ever since losing his wife. He feared loving again because love could disappear without warning. He feared disappointing Ivy. Most of all, he feared believing happiness might return. Serafina gently reminded him that courage was not living without fear. Courage was choosing love despite it. Months later, another charity event filled the same convention center where everything had begun. This time Rowan attended wearing a tailored suit instead of a maintenance uniform. Ivy proudly held both adults' hands while walking through the entrance. When reporters jokingly asked whether the billionaire beside him was finally his wife, Rowan smiled with quiet confidence instead of embarrassment. He answered that the first time had been a joke. This time, it was the happiest truth of his life. The room erupted into applause, but nothing mattered more than Ivy's joyful smile as she hugged both of them together. Wealth had never rescued Rowan. Kindness had. And Serafina hadn't fallen in love with a perfect man. She had fallen in love with a father whose greatest fortune had always been the love he gave his daughter. Special request: comment below with one word that describes this story: hope, love, faith, or family. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that second chances are real, leave a heartfelt comment, and subscribe to Heartwarming Tales. Your support allows us to keep sharing stories that inspire kindness, healing, and hope. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with perfect timing or grand romance. Sometimes they begin with a simple joke, and one brave heart willing to answer, "I'd love that."